Boeing. So Boeing apparently is pleading guilty to criminal fraud. We're not going to stay here long because we got to get to Biden, and I want to react to pretty much the whole interview with Biden. But they saying that Boeing is now pleading guilty to criminal fraud. I don't remember in recent memory a large major company pleading guilty to a criminal case. But that is the case over at Boeing. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, make sure that you guys tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Let's get to it, y'all. Hold on, I don't think that's the one that I want to play yet. I want to switch it first.
What do we know at this point in terms of the rationale for Boeing pleading guilty, and where does this take the company going forward?
Yeah, Boeing is pleading guilty to criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States, and that's after the Justice Department it came to a view that Boeing had not adhered to an earlier settlement in relation to two 737 MAX crashes back in 2018 and 2019, which killed 346 people. What this now does is leave Boeing open to a criminal fine of up to almost $500 million. The fine itself will be determined by a judge according to the Justice Department. And as part of pleading guilty, what it means is it has to invest $455 million in compliance and safety programs, and it has to install a corporate monitor. But the alternative for Boeing was to take this to a criminal trial, and the specter of that, having that out in open court, would be unpalatable because Boeing's leadership is still in limbo. Its finances are in disarray. But with this being settled, it's a good thing for Boeing to clear this off its decks. The question is just to what level of fine that it will be hit with. But for the families of the two fatal 737 MAX crashes, they wanted a fine of $25 billion. So it's a big gulf, and whether the judge will listen to the families of those victims to hear their case will be another matter.
$25 billion. They wanted a fine of $25 billion, man. You can miss me with that. Hold on. Maybe I heard that wrong. Let me just hear this one more time.
2018 and 2019, which killed 346 people. What this now does is leave Boeing open to a criminal fine of up to almost $500 million. The fine itself will be determined by a judge according to the Justice Department. And as part of pleading guilty, what it means is it has to invest $455 million in compliance and safety programs, and it has to install a corporate monitor. But the alternative for Boeing was to take this to a criminal trial, and the specter of that, having that out in open court, would be unpalatable because Boeing's leadership is still in limbo. Its finances are in disarray. But with this being settled, it's a good thing for Boeing to clear this off its decks. The question is just to what level of fine that it will be hit with. But for the families of the two fatal 737 MAX crashes, they wanted a fine of $25 billion. So
never. That was never going to happen. All right, so I get it. So it was a money play. So basically what happened with Boeing, what they're telling us is that Boeing was going to plead guilty to whatever this is and accept whatever the fine was, which is estimated to be somewhere in the range of less than $500 million. So the fine is going to be less than $500 million. I'm not sure how that plays out when it comes to any kind of civil penalties towards the company, or I'm saying towards the families or the people that died or whatever. And I also think that this is a way in which the United States of America then continues to protect Boeing, because Boeing is a huge contributor into what's going on, even when it comes to the defense. When we talk about defense, when we talk about money that's being made, when we talk about the different industries and the sectors in which Boeing participate, they don't just make planes. They make a lot of things. And so this is a way for Boeing to protect its assets and also protect its long-term stock price, because eventually this will blow over anyway. Let me look at it from another angle, and maybe I'm missing some things.
Boeing reaching a deal to plead guilty in a case related to the crashes of 737 MAX planes 5 years ago. Philip O joins us right now. He's got more of the details on that. Phil, good morning.
Because I actually remember the CEO during that hearing, he actually stood up and turned around and apologized to the families.
Becky, this was a filing late last night, and it is a guilty plea by Boeing. So let me go over what the terms are of this.
A lot of people saying that this is a potential buy, a cheap buy. I don't like risky bets. I don't like risky stuff like this. I like sure things. I like things based off of the 8 things that we look for when we look to invest in a company, and then we take out profits, and that's what we're going to talk about this Thursday.
Plea agreement between Boeing and the Department of Justice. And again, they jointly filed this with the court last night. The charge is conspiring to defraud the government. By the way, that is a felony charge. We'll talk about the significance in just a little bit of it being a felony. The fine that Boeing will agree to pay is $243.6 million. In addition, it will invest at least $455 million in making sure that its safety and compliance programs meet the standards that they're supposed to meet.
So I don't look at the $455 million as significant at all, because this was already a part of reinvesting back into the company. And so you already had monies that was earmarked towards investing in safety in general. And so when you say, okay, well, we invest in $455 million inside of safety and compliance, that doesn't really resonate with me at all. It doesn't resonate with me at all, because it's almost like research and development, right? There are certain monies, if you understand corporate budgets and what it is that they earmark and how they divide that up between the different segments within whatever it is that they got going on. If you look at corporate budgets, a lot of times, like I'll give you an example. A lot of times, if a lot of y'all work in corporate, you don't like the idea that you have to build to a particular project, especially if you're in technology, right? And the reason that they say you got to build to a project is because the technology partners or whatever division or whatever project that you're working on is angling and they're fighting for money that's already earmarked within the company for research and development or whatever it is that they're doing towards these particular projects, right? It's like safety and compliance. They got a budget for lawyers. They got a budget for human resources. They got a budget for a lot of things. And so they'll tell you to build to a particular department because that then shows that we need the money, and we're also preparing ourselves for the next fiscal year so that we can angle for this money as a part of this ongoing project, because we're feeding into the company profits, or we're significant when it comes to making sure that the company is running great, right? So the money is already earmarked from Boeing. Worst case scenario, they take it from another division or they take it and they earmark it. But all that is accounting. All it is accounting. Okay, listen, y'all, we're going to invest $455 million into safety and compliance. That could be, like, literally, it could be anything. It could be, oh, okay, well, we're going to allocate a portion of the budget to buy Spirit Aerosystems, which is the company the supplier that actually produces, the tube that is then the plane, the wings is attached to. Okay, we're going to invest money to buy Spirit Aerosystems and install more safety inspectors, which they should have already had, in order to make sure that the supplier is doing what they're supposed to do. It could be anything. It could literally, it doesn't mean that they're going to take more money from what they were already doing and allocate it over to it. It means that they just going to use the accounting practices to make sure that they can show that $455 million went into this particular thing to make sure that they're more in safety and compliance and that the people will be able to get safe inside of the planes. The significant one is a $243 million fine. That's a significant one. So I don't look at this and say, oh man, they're investing $455 million. You got to understand how it works in corporate America and how things are going to be allocated. And I don't think that the CEO is going to last past his current contract either.
Over the next 3 years, and an independent corporate monitor will be hired and approved by the judge, who will make sure that Boeing is doing what it should be doing when it comes to safety and compliance. The focus for that monitor will be quality control. This has been at the heart of the problems for Boeing, and it's what triggered the DOJ to say, wait a second, you violated the deferred prosecution agreement revolving around 2 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019. Boeing has declined to comment on the details of the plea agreement, simply saying that it had reached an agreement.
Somebody said that they're going to pull more, expect more commercial outfitters to continue to pull more Boeing orders off the table. No, I don't think that they're pulling the orders at all. I think that they're just deferring it. It's not a good time for them to be in the news for ordering planes from Boeing. And they are not going to not order the planes. They're just going to defer it, because also, if you understand the commercial airlines industry, because I've done a deep dive on this, and this is one of the reasons why y'all want to jump in the stock club, because we go into the details that helps us to make informed decisions on whether or not you should invest in a company or not. For example, a lot of pilots for a particular airline is usually only capable of, or they're only trained to fly a specific plane within a fleet. Even when they talk about private airlines or private this or whatever, where you talk about company planes and stuff, a lot of companies that may buy a plane, for example, let's say that you Apple and you got pilots that are on staff, a lot of times they are familiar with a specific aircraft, and the upgrades is easier for them to train on, and so it's much easier for them to stay into a specific airline, right? If you do Airbus, then they're gonna stick with Airbus. If you stick with Boeing, then they're gonna stick with Boeing. So they don't always just pull orders off the table. They just defer when they're going to actually make the order or place the order, or when they're going to take delivery of a particular plane. It doesn't mean that they're going to remove it. Boeing is going to be just fine. I don't believe that Boeing is going to file for bankruptcy. I don't think that they're going to do anything. I think that they're absolutely going to be fine long term.
Does not sit
And I
well
could be wrong.
with the relatives of the 737 MAX family. We knew that they would not be happy with this agreement. Javier De Luis issued this statement overnight. The penalties and conditions imposed on Boeing as a result of this plea deal are not substantively different than those that failed to change Boeing's safety culture and that resulted in the Alaska Air door blowout. This further complicates, or is at least another factor that Boeing Chairman Steve Mollenkopf will have to keep in mind as he looks for the next chairman, or the next CEO, of Boeing.
Yep, because they are going to get rid of that
whoever
guy.
the candidate is, who
They
he
get
is
out of it.
having
And they
discussions
gonna pay him
with,
to leave,
or
too. He
maybe
gonna
having
get it back.
discussions with in the future, they knew that this was coming. But it is another factor that whoever is hired will have to consider because of things like bidding on defense and space contracts. I mentioned that it's a guilty plea for a fraud charge. That factors into future bids on defense contracts that the next CEO will have to keep in mind. Boeing believes that you can get a waiver, let's say from the Defense Department, Becky, if there is a charge, or if there's a program that they bid on. And let's say Boeing has the best bid, they believe that the Department of Defense will be able to issue a waiver, because right now, if you have a guilty plea to a felony conviction, in many ways, you're not supposed to be able to win a government contract. But according to those who I've talked with at Boeing, they believe that there's some wiggle room there, and that if it's the right contract and Boeing is the right bid, they could receive a waiver from the department that is overseeing the program that is being bid on.
Boeing will be fine. So that's the latest news with Boeing. I don't want to stick around on that too long. I just wanted to keep y'all up to date on what's happening out here in these streets.